God loves to turn what the enemy tries to get done and turn it to our advantage. He gets a lot of mileage out of betrayals if we respond accurately. Watch this little 5-minute clip and I'll be right back. Skeeter is actually really wanting to play. Betrayals. Dealing with betrayals. We need to start having a different look at betrayals. No, I mean, I'm not saying you're ever going to like it. You're never going to like it. And none of us want to sign up for a bunch of betrayers in our camp. But the point is, when you realize that going through betrayal is something to discern if you're ready to go on for deeper places and more with God. Because if you can't stand betrayal, if betrayal crumbles you on the inside, whether or not, say for instance, you've been betrayed and you just can't let that offense go, then there you are. You're dead in the water right there. You're not going to go on with God. I don't care how right you were and how wrong they were. If you don't forgive, release it, you're wrong. You're wrong too, and you're dead in the water. You're not moving forward anymore. So it can kill whatever motivation that God planned, the destination that God planned for you. And also, then, when you do handle betrayal, it does something on the inside of you that you make a choice of whether or not you're going to let people in your camp that aren't with you. They're there for a season, but when it gets rough, they're gone. Or when something gets offered to them, they'll sell you out, or things like that. When you can go through that, and you've made the choice. Hey, there's no going back. I mean, I'm not going to back off or let this destroy me, or I'm not going to stop doing what God has called me to do because I'm so fearful of the pain of betrayal again that I don't ever want to put myself in that position. But if you go through it and you realize that what I stood for, I might have not done everything right in that situation, but what I stood for was right, and I'm going on with God, I'm learning from it, I'm going on, then what that does is that is putting something, a maturity on the inside of us that allows us to meet opposition and do it even with more grace and more kindness, and not just if you're fighting all the time, then that means the wounds are still there. But if you can handle, you get healed of betrayals, then you go on, and it strengthens you and causes you to have this this resolve on the inside of you that no matter if anybody comes with you or don't go with you, they leave you or whatever, you know that God, this is Skeeter, that God has called you for something, and you're going to be true to that calling if you go it alone or if you have people with you. Betrayal is not only a test, I believe it's got the ingredients in it. If we operate according to God's word and his will in that, it has the ingredients to bring maturity and strength on the inside of you to where you're not so fearful. You don't have to have everybody's applause. You don't have to have your own little fan clubs behind you to do things. Or you're too intimidated if you don't have a crowd of people behind you telling you, cheering you on. And it does something in you when you go through it, and you go through it, and God puts his grace on it. And anything that you lose during a betrayal, God always recovers over and above somehow or another. Just a word this morning: betrayals. Don't look at them so horribly. Look at them as knowing that you're not going to get through life without it. Jesus had a Judas. Do you think you're going to go through life without one? I have a Skeeter. Good morning, everyone. Well, I hope you enjoyed that little clip and Skeeter and all of that. It helped keep me awake driving, that's for sure. All right, betrayals. Let's go further in betrayals. Where I left off last week was talking about David, and we went through Joseph and talking about David and the great betrayals that David went through, and he responded so accurately. You know, I'm going to go to our right responses. I want to say this right up front, probably should reiterate them at the end. But right responses, I wrote 3 things down. There's probably more, but let me just write these 3. Number 1, keep your mouth shut. When you are betrayed and you're being slandered, keep your mouth shut. No retaliation. That's what David did right when that guy, Zeruiah, was slandering him, and another Shimei or whatever his name was, he was running across the hilltop just cussing David and all of that, and David did not respond at that time. Now later on, to protect the office of his son, he had him taken out, and it was a wise thing to do. But he kept his mouth shut, and he did. When somebody is out to steal something of you, to steal a platform that you have, to steal your reputation, it's so tempting. If they're going to slander you, it's so tempting to down their reputation, because obviously they're not operating really cool here. But God doesn't honor that. He's not in it. And I tell you what, even this last week, I saw people on Facebook, dear Lord, somebody on Facebook got their panties in a wad over church leadership, another church in another state. And I happen to know them, and they're good friends of mine, the leadership of that church. And they're blasting it all over Facebook that they're protecting people from the leadership of this church. No, you're just trying to protect your own character and your own reputation because something went foul. And I'm not saying that everybody operating in this thing is right. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying when we retaliate, I don't care what you call it. That person was calling it protecting people against what they were doing. It's not. You're just retaliating. And you walk away. That's God's business. They're not teaching heresy. They're not teaching heresy. They're not scamming people. They might be making some mistakes and not running it the way you would run it, but it wasn't given to you to run. It was given to them to run. And so their mistakes are their own. And you leave that up to God. The Bible says that you leave a man's servant to the master. And so that's the master's business. That's not your business down here as a private in the army to set straight the general that you think isn't doing right. God won't honor that. It won't honor. And you might even be right about some of your attitudes, not attitudes, but seeing some wrong things. But he's not in that situation. He's not going to honor that, because what you're doing is you're causing a schism in that body of believers, and God never honors that. Okay, number 2. Number 1, keep your mouth shut, no retaliation. Number 2, the right response. Release the offender and forgive. That's an obvious. Maybe that should be number 1. Well, the thing is when you're in it, man, when you're in it and the you-know-what is hitting the fan and it's splattering you all over, right then, just to keep your mouth shut is a full-time job. Full-time job. And but release the offender and forgive. You're going to eventually have to get to that place. And you got to work on it instantly, but eventually it won't just be, I forgive by you're saying it out your mouth, but your whole being on the inside of you is wanting to take their head off. You know, I mean, I want to see them suffer, dadgummit. I want to see what they've done to me. I want them to feel the pain that they put in me. And I've shared this before in another teaching, but it's worth saying right now, because I haven't I haven't had, I've had very, very few open visions. And I'd love to say I have them weekly, but I do not. But this came at a time when, after I was betrayed horribly by someone very, very, very close to me, and I wasn't even thinking about it, but I was going through the pain of that betrayal. And what hurt me the most is that they inflicted such pain in me and my family and people around me, and then just went off skipping happy as a lark. And I was like, I want them to know. I want them to feel the pain that they give me. But I didn't even realize that this had a hook in me. And I had my Bible and my stuff around me, and I'd been in the Word, and all of a sudden, I mean, God, they say he's El Shaddai, I don't know, all of these names that I can't think of right now, but also El Sneaky, and that's the truth. I mean, out of the clear blue, the room disappeared, and all of a sudden, I am in such blinding light that I can't see anything. I'm in another realm. I mean, this was not my imagination. I was in another realm. And I was in the realm of light. And I couldn't see. And I knew that the Lord Jesus was walking right here to my right. And beside me. And, when I'm in this thing, it's the opposite. Yeah, whatever. Anyway, he was walking right beside me on my right side. But I couldn't see him, couldn't see anything. My eyes couldn't take anything in. It was blinding. And I thought, well, he's going to show me what we're doing here in a minute. And I just, was walking. And little by little, my eyes started being able to make out in the distance ahead of me a cross. And somebody was nailed to it and was on it, and they were alive. Now, that was like, what? Because Jesus ain't on the cross no more, y'all. And besides that, he's right here beside me. What is going on here? And I didn't even ask anything. I'm just walking knowing he's going to show me. And as my eyes got more adjusted and I got closer, it was the person who had betrayed me. And I saw them in such incredible, intense pain, like you would be a person alive nailed to a cross. And I said, what is he doing up there? Get him down, get him down. Who put him up there? Get him down. And the Lord just calmly said, you did. You put him up there. He said, because you wanted him to feel the pain that he caused you to feel. And I knew that was that's when I realized that was a stronghold in me. I didn't realize it before. To me, that was just justice. That I needed to see justice. And I repented of that. And I mean, it took that venom out of me to see that. It broke me. And I repented of that. And so you release the offender and you forgive. And whatever God has to do to reveal the wrong motives on the inside of us, he knows how to do it. One night over the same issue, I had a dream, woke up that morning, didn't need no interpreter for this dream. I dreamt that I was eating vegetables out of my own garden that were grown in bitter soil. Well, that's nice to wake up. Good morning, sweetheart. You've been eating food that's grown in bitter soil out of the garden of your own heart. Well, got to deal with that. So you release the offender and you forgive. It's as much about you as it is the other person, because I don't care how right you are in a betrayal. You can both be wrong because of how you hold on to it and respond. Don't let go of it. Hold on to it. You're looking for justice. Bless God. You know how that goes. Okay, number 3, right response. Make staying true to God's purposes your main priority. Serve well as unto the Lord, even in a dungeon, like in the case of Joseph. Make Staying true to God's purposes, your main priority. When at the last program, I ended up sharing about a betrayal where started and grew a service at the Cheyenne Frontier Days that became huge, and then another ministry came in and stole it, and the opportunity to do something about it came at a time to where it would have just been a fight. And that isn't what God would have done. Stay true to God's purposes and make that your main priority. All of a sudden, the main priority then stopped being saving that church service and not letting it be stolen from you. The main priority was protecting the service itself for the sake of the people, and not being not causing an offense, a stumbling block in the face of these committee men that none of them, as far as I knew, were saved. And so you just give them a reason to stay away from Jesus because you ain't real. You ain't. You got to have God's priorities have got to be your priorities. In a betrayal, it is hugely important to stick to the priorities of God. And you say, well, they're doing this other wrong. And God knows how to deal with that. God knows how to deal with it. Now, there's certain times to where you're supposed to do something. I mean, in matters of law or this or that, somebody is molested or something like that, you better come forth and have opposition and bring that to light and cause justice to come forth. Do what you can do. But in other situations where it's just a slandering of your personality, your character, your integrity to steal something that you've got, no. Okay, so David, last week was in how David responded so well to these, basically all these betrayals. I mean, he responded correctly to Saul's betrayal to kill him. And when he had an opportunity to kill Saul, if he hadn't responded accurately in his heart, when he had the opportunity to kill Saul and all of his men are cheering him on, take him. God has delivered him into your hands. Take the SOB out. You know how that goes. Don't get offended at that. That's the way people think. And I don't want to talk like that, but that's the way they think. Anyway, that's what's behind this motive. And it is disintegrating the value of someone else and making it right to take them out. And that's what we do. And if we're not operating in God's priorities. Okay, so he didn't do that. And so now, but let me tell you about this. Let me tell you about the time that David hugely betrayed. He was a betrayer himself. You know what? It isn't just about the times that you and I got betrayed. What about the times we were the perpetrators? What about the times that we were the betrayers? Oh, we don't want to hear about that, do we? Well, David was a betrayer himself. When did he do this? Well, it was when he should have went to battle with his men, and he stayed home, and he was bored, and he was, instead of going to sleep at night, he was out on the top of his roof, and he sees this gorgeous woman, Bathsheba, bathing, and he just, instead of protecting her integrity and walking away, he stands and just watches it all until lust has taken over, so much so that he wants her. And he calls for her, and he has sex with her, and he gets her pregnant. And so he finds out that, well, he knew this up front. This is huge. This is a huge betrayal. When I saw all the ins and outs of this, I have always loved David. But when I saw the ins and outs of this, it really offended me. And for a while, I had to get over being offended at David, because I stuck him up here, and he did a pretty rotten thing here. When he asked about her, they tell him straight up, that's Uriah's wife. Well, who's Uriah? If you'll read, where did I write that down? If you'll read in 2 Samuel chapter 23, there is a list of David's mighty men. These are the special forces of David. These men did absolutely phenomenal things that were totally impossible for men to do except that God. And he had a bunch of mighty men, and Uriah was one of them. And they said, that's Uriah's wife. So not only is he going to rape, which she didn't have a choice in this. I don't care if she was all for it when it came to it or what. She had no choice. All right. So Uriah, he betrayed Uriah. He stole his wife, man, and had sex with her and got her pregnant. Well, then it gets worse. So he finds out that she's pregnant, so he decides to call Uriah back, and so that he'll go sleep with his wife, and then he can claim that that's Uriah's baby. Well, Uriah is so honorable, he won't go and enjoy the time with his wife because he says the men are out there in harm's way, and I'm not going to go home and sleep with my wife. So David tries something else. He gets the guy drunk and gets him drunk and sends him home. Now he'll have sex with that good-looking woman. He don't even go home. He stays on the steps of the palace, sleeps outside on the steps of the palace because his integrity, even when he was drunk, his integrity held strong to the honor of these other mighty men. These are special ops guys. I mean, they're the best of the best, and they're so loyal to David. These are the guys that when David said, when he was running from Saul, and he said, I wished I had a drink from the well. I think it was Bethlehem or someplace. It was a certain well. And a couple of guys go in and fight their way through all the guards, draw him some water out, fight their way back to give this to David. That's how loyal these guys are. And David is throwing them all in the dirt. He didn't just betray Uriah when he did that. He betrayed all of his forces, because if he's going to do that to Uriah, buddy, he'd do it to you. And so he betrayed Bathsheba. He betrayed Uriah. But this is the thing that I didn't know for a long time. Now, again, forgive me for the lack of being able to talk right. I have enough trouble with English, not these words. I didn't know this, that Bathsheba, not only was she the wife of Uriah, she was the daughter of Eliam, who was also one of David's mighty men. So he sleeps with one of his mighty men's wives, which is another one of his mighty men's daughter, and ruins that family relationship, rips up that whole family, and it leaves a wake of hurt behind him. He betrays all of these guys. Not only that, here we go. This guy is Ahithophel. I do not know how to say this name. But Ahithophel was David's most trusted, most wisest counselor, had been his wise counselor for years. And through all of the betrayals and the times that people tried to undergird David and steal the throne away from him, Ahithophel, Ahithophel, he stayed true to David. He was loyal to David all the way. Ahithophel, his loyal, intensely wise, so wise, they said that when Ahithophel gave advice, they said it was as hearing from the voice of God. And Bathsheba was his granddaughter. And this was a double betrayal. David betrayed him, and he later on betrayed David. Okay, we'll get to that in a minute. But Ahithophel, he was betrayed by his own king, who he had served so gloriously, by him stealing and shaming his own granddaughter, and ruining and upsetting, disrupting, ripping apart an entire family line. All right? Ahithophel, he did not respond correctly. The Bible tells us that he gave no response when this was a big issue. But what he did was he let it seethe on the inside of him. I mean, he might have talked about it. We don't know. The Bible doesn't tell you. But we know that from Ahithophel's response when Absalom betrayed David, that was the last straw. After David had done what he did to his counselor's family and his granddaughter, his loyalty to David had stopped. And I tell you what, I could understand that. I mean, I could understand that. I could say to where, look, I can't serve you anymore. But really, the right thing to have done, probably at that point, I think the way, in my opinion, how I would have wanted to respond, the honorable thing would have been to go to David and say, I know you're anointed of God, and you're the anointed king, but I cannot from my heart serve you anymore because of the pain that you caused my family, the betrayal that you caused all of us, and all. I asked to be released from my position and go away, keep your mouth shut, and leave that to God. But Ahithophel didn't do that. He stayed in there and acted as if he was staying loyal to David. And when Absalom came up with this great betrayal, the Bible says that Ahithophel went with him, and when David found out that his best counselor went with Absalom, that was huge to him. That was another betrayal of David, but it was one that he caused. He sowed the seeds for that one. And David said, "Oh my Lord," said his counsel is like the counsel of God. I'm done for. And he sent back a couple of his other loyal guys, but one of his counselors, and he said, "Go and try to refute what Ahithophel says. Try to turn his counsel, because if they follow his counsel, I'm done for here." And so he does that. This guy does that. And sure enough, Ahithophel, when David and all of his loyal ones left the palace, and Absalom came into the palace, and he drew the counselors in, and he said, "Okay, now what do we do?" And Ahithophel said, "David is heartbroken. He's weary. Get some of your best men and go strike him down, and go and you go with him." I think he even said, "You go with him." I should have read this right now, but anyway, he said, "Go strike him now, because he's weak, he's confused, he's heartbroken, he is vulnerable. Get him now before he builds back up, because he is a warrior. Don't give him time to build back up and think in his warrior mind. Right now, he's under this heavy weight of hurt and confusion." And the man that David sent in there said, they asked him, "What do you say?" And he said, "Well, that is a great counsel, except not at this time." He said, "David's a warrior, and he's chapped right now." Said, "He's like a bear robbed of her cubs. You go in there now, and he'll rip your head off. You know what a warrior he is. I mean, he is known all over the world for his ability to fight. He does the impossible. You strike him now. Now is not the time to strike him." He said, let him have a little time, and then get up an entire army and go and annihilate them all." And Absalom, in his pride, he liked that, because it was like, yeah, just show the whole world, show the whole nation. And he went with that counsel, which was bad counsel for Absalom, great counsel for David. Ahithophel knew it was over. And this is the consequences to Ahithophel's betrayal. And even though I look at him and I go, man, I don't know that I would have done any better. than you. I don't know that I wouldn't have jumped ship. The thing here is that Ahithophel jumped ship. He was wise. He knew Absalom was a horse's butt. He knew he was a horse's butt. He's just an empty suit. Absalom was an empty suit. He was a manipulator and all of that. He had no power and authority in him to rule right. Everything he did wasn't going to be about the country. It was going to be about him, promoting himself. He used to have all these guys run ahead of him and say, Absalom is da, 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 and all of this. So Ahithophel knew Absalom wasn't good for the country, and instead of him judging what was good for the country, he moved and judged according to his own betrayed, hurt emotions and his hurt. He never got rid of that hurt. And so when Absalom refused his counsel in 2 Samuel 17:23, it says, and when Ahithophel saw that his counsel was not followed, he saddled his ass and arose and got home to his house and to his city, put his household in order, and hung himself and died, and was buried in the sepulchre of his father. A very sad end to a great, great life and a great man. What we do when we are betrayed has huge consequences, either beneficial or not beneficial, deadly, all right? Either you arise to greater places in God because you've proven you can handle. You're never going to be applauded by the world, y'all. Everybody ain't going to be singing your praises. You cannot be in a place of authority and hold great power if you can't stand somebody to not like you and to talk bad about you. If you can't handle that, then you can't handle leadership and authority. Betrayals is a test of our capability of whether or not we can handle authority. I hope that you enjoyed this. Until next time, this is Crystal Lyons. Thank you for watching.